Hello, good evening. So,
Hi.
hi. Thank you for joining. So we're like usual a bit early so we can let people in. We're going to be waiting for everybody to join, but if you'd like to say hi or open your mic, we still have some time until we start. Please do. Hello, how are you? Hi, everyone who just joined. So we're just waiting for everybody to be here and then we will start. So if you'd like to say hi, you can unmute yourself.
Hi everyone. Hi, hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good, busy but good.
Nice.
Yeah, I look forward to today's today's presentation. So yeah.
Same for me.
Hey,
Hello,
okay. Okay.
thank
Hello.
you. Hi.
How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
So is the weather great for you guys? No?
I'm from The Hague, so just got some rain coming back home. It's not even raining, it's like raining,
Yeah.
hailing, cold, bloody cold.
Yeah, in Brussels today we have the first snow, so it's
Not good.
nice. It's really cool. I
But if
mean,
you wear
cool
enough
when you are
layers,
inside, then you have the heating, you know?
yeah. Yes, and if you wear enough layers, I think it's manageable.
Yeah, right.
That's what I'm trying to think.
That's correct
The, the
too.
the the German said there is no bad weather, only bad clothes, right?
That's right. That's
Yes.
right.
Or not appropriate clothes. Maybe not
Exactly.
bad clothes
Yeah,
because
yeah. I mean, bad for the
yeah,
situation. I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
And where are you based, Leticia?
in Munich,
Oh, okay. Do you also have snow there or not yet? How is
not at
it?
all.
No.
It's rather cold, but not at all. I mean, it was just good rain, but really rain. We need to
Mm.
wait for the snow, I guess.
Yeah.
Or you can come to Brussels. We will have
Or
it snowing
that,
until
or that, or that.
the weekend, until the weekend is gonna be snowing. Hi,
Aw.
everyone who has just joined now. How are you doing? We're just waiting. We will be waiting in few minutes. We will start. So we're just saying hi and breaking up the ice with a little bit of chat. If you'd like to join, please unmute yourself. Meanwhile, we will be waiting.
Since we are waiting, I might have a weird question, but like I didn't really have time precisely to see where do you actually work, Leticia? Like, what do you do, if I may ask?
Sure. So it's now some years I've been focusing on OT security. I mean, there is a quiz at the beginning, so I don't give too much in, but never mind. No, my focus is manufacturing security, production security. So how to secure factories of all type. I mean, I have a few examples, or we will talk about a few type of production lines. I came a bit by chance. So my background is cybersecurity, general cybersecurity, and I came a bit by chance in the field of manufacturing security, and I've been staying there since a few years now. And I work for BXC Security, which is a company I co-founded a bit more than 5 years ago now.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And you said that you come with your background is already in cybersecurity. Like, how did you know
Yes.
that you wanted to go into it?
I didn't. I've been studying engineering in France, and I did a Master of Management in London. And I started working randomly in cybersecurity. I knew I wanted to work in consulting, but I didn't know in consulting in what. I applied. Well, I'm French originally, maybe you can guess from the accent and the name. So I applied back then in France, and I had a good feeling from my first boss. He was super passionate about cybersecurity. And I started like that in cybersecurity consulting completely randomly. And I stayed in the field since then. Back then there was no studies anyway. I mean, there was no master or no career path in universities on cybersecurity. So learning and the job with engineering background, let's say.
Okay, so you were technical basically because you did study engineering. Okay, did it help you a lot with the consultancy? Like, because I hear
No.
many people working. Yeah.
Not at the beginning of my career.
Okay.
I at the beginning I was really the studies were very much different from what I learned. The reality, the job was very different from what I learned. It was more a question about learning to adapt more than learning skills.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I will tell you how I met Leticia later on when I present her. I think it's time. We've waited 5 minutes, and usually people keep on coming while we're presenting. That's how it usually goes. So I think I'm going to go ahead. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm happy to have the opportunity to meet with the community once a month. And I'm also happy to see returning names and people that are familiar with us and we're familiar with them. So today we're going with the presentation of Leticia. So Leticia is one amazing member of our community. I met her in May 2024, but she was with us before than that. And she was a mentor in the Google project. And then she was also involved in other activities that we have. She's a speaker. She was involved in the conference, in the mentorship program, and now in the webinars. I'm going to leave the floor to Leticia, and I'll be here to help. So, Leticia, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Manel, for the lovely introduction. Well, yeah, so I started a bit already in the time of ice breaking. My name is Laetitia Combe. I am managing director and co-founder of BXC Security, which is a German-based cybersecurity company focusing on OT security. So it's now a few years where my focus has been how to bring security to the production lines, how to secure environment like pharmaceutics, like energy sectors, like the water distribution that flows in your homes. All this environment is more and more connected. And therefore, as a matter of fact, more and more at risk from a cybersecurity perspective. So this has been my focus since, a few years. My company is now a bit more than 5 years. I was in that field already some years ago. And today, we're going to talk about big words, bringing PKI to Brownfield OT, a realistic journey to zero trust. So first, I want to talk about the wording because I think it might be a bit obscure. Zero trust first. Zero trust, that's a word you might have heard here and there. And it's sometimes associated with something very technical. But for me, zero trust is not about technology. It's not about techniques. It's about how you approach an environment. It's about how you define the trust model between people and machines in an environment. So before we go into the content, Manel, maybe you can take over with the first questions. I thought we have a quick discussion and talk on, well, some of the keywords that I used in my title. So the first one is, well, what is OT? I was starting to mention that a little before. I here propose some definitions. I'll let you have a look.
So please choose your answer and click on the answer you think is the correct one, or you think is the best fit, and there is no score if you chose the one that is not the correct one. It's just so it would help Leticia understand where she could tackle more the wordings. Anyone else could not submit their answer?
No, I also cannot submit my answer.
Oh. Is anyone able to click on an answer? Maybe let's see if it works actually for somebody else. Yes? Yeah, you do have permission, but I'm not sure why it is not working. I'm going to double check again. Yes, I think it's working for some of you and some is not. Not sure why. All right, if you were, because I double checked, I didn't find any obstructions. Yeah, maybe it's because of a tablet or a phone, because if it's not working on a browser, it could be a bit tricky. But if not, just write option 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, A, B, C in the chat. That could be helpful if it doesn't work for you. So for the ones who work for them.
Sorry, actually, I have my laptop and it's Mac, but I cannot put any comment. Neither I can vote. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure about the
That's a
issue.
new one.
Just info. Okay.
Could you try maybe logging in from a different browser or log off and log in again?
Never
I'm sorry.
mind. Never mind. It's okay. I mean, we will
All
not
right.
going to
Just for
spend
you,
more
if you,
time. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, if
Thank
you'd
you.
like
Yeah.
to. All right.
For
I'm sorry
future
about that.
use. Yeah. Thank you.
Please unmute yourself if you need something then. All right, so I'm going to submit the answers for you can see the answers, Leticia?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, you're correct. So, the OTE is operational technology. It's hardware and software. It's everything that can detect and control the production lines. So, it goes from what is called by the engineers BMS, building management systems, which is, for example, the control of the temperature, the control of the doors, the control of the humidity according to what is being produced can be, of course, more or less relevant. But also the control of all the robots, the controls of all the packaging lines, the control that you find in a warehouse. All of that fits into the OT world. It is highly driven nowadays by automation and by the increase in digitalization in OT has been coming from the benefit from the business of new technologies. Things like predictive maintenance, it was a huge hype in OT a few years ago. Now it's a bit more normal, but being able to have devices in production lines which are giving the opportunity to the engineers to predict when there will be a failure and therefore limit the impact on the production lines. So all of that fits into the OT. It was a field that barely existed 10 years ago, because until then, most of the devices were not connected. Basically, everything which was done manually, all the steps were with a lot of operators in the field, and therefore very limited automation, very limited digitalization. Today, I was recently in a Siemens factory. You have huge lines of production, and you have up to, I don't know, 5 people in the production. Everything is running automatically. People interact only if there is a problem. That is the only reason where there is a human interaction in an entire production line. So we are really, the fundament, this is really nothing to do with security. This is the big context of OT. We are really talking in the last years about a fundamental change in the production methods. And therefore, however, an increase of the attack surface because of the high amount of devices, connected devices in the environment. So that's when we talk about OT. Now, next one, if I'm not wrong, the next one is, I forgot if I put PKI or Brownfield before. Maybe we go to the next one, Manel.
Yes. So number 2.
Yes. So the second one, you can see Greenfield, Brownfield. It's still something we use in the IT or in IT security, but we use even more in OT. Already giving in what is behind, but that's quite a key.
If for any reason you were not able to submit your answer on the poll, just write it down in the chat. Thank you.
All right, I let you read. If you have questions on the wording, so feel free to ask. Mhm. Maybe shall we look at the answers? Shall I?
I guess, yeah.
Well, actually, I see here the range,
Change
the
in the
percentages.
percentage.
We see. Okay, two main one. Well, actually, when we talk in OT, greenfield means building new system, building new infrastructure, building basically new production lines from scratch. And brownfield, on the contrary, means recycling. In other words, is working, improving, adjusting legacy devices into the new world. And that is a lot. I mean, today in Europe, there is barely anything which is greenfield. I mean, there are very limited amount of companies which create a brand new production plant. People merge, buy, extend, connect, digitalize devices, and that's a big part of the problem. In the sense that, well, devices which are there since 20 years in production suddenly become connected by, let's call them plugins, or devices which are not built for security. So most of the time in OT, we don't have the chance to build a brand new production line from scratch with properly thought security requirements. We just inherit from existing environments. And that is why most of the work we are doing, I mean, to be honest, I've never seen a new plant in my years in OT. Everything is built on brownfield. And then last one, Manel, is PKI. I think probably we will be faster on this one. So, I mean, PKI will be at the center of this discussion. And then the question is, okay, let's align on what is PKI, public infrastructure. I mean, for the words.
Please vote on your answer, and if you cannot vote, you can always write down. Thank you.
So here I don't necessarily let everyone finish voting, but yes, PKI is indeed, I mean, I think you all agree, PKI is a technical solution to manage digital identities. And this is where we will go. So now the questions, now we are clear on what we want to talk about is how does PKI, how does the management of digital identity bring zero trust into existing plants, existing factories. Let's go. So what is the secret journey of zero trust? So we want to go to a world where we have trust into the devices which are in the environment. The key of zero trust is the fundament is you don't trust what you don't know. That means you need to know exactly who is playing, who in terms of persons, who in terms of devices is playing in your environment. Therefore, the key is machine identity. Why so? And what is the difference with the past years and with the IT world? First of all, um, until recently, we were all, I would say in general, the cybersecurity community was focusing on perimeter security. How do we protect the borders? How do we protect the network? How do we protect an environment? But today, if you look at how a production line works, devices talk within the production line, but with other production or warehousing, for example, with cloud devices, with third-party vendors who, for example, provide remote maintenance. That means the perimeter is completely fluid, is full of switches holes. How do we protect only the perimeter when there are so many communications through it? And that's the key. That's how machine identity and protection of identities, but let's say I assume in this presentation that human identity are to some extent under control. Machine identities is the fundament to be able to define what is the source of a communication, can we trust that source, and how do we enable this trust environment? The second point, which I got to also very often as a question is, in IT, when we want to protect communication, we talk about data at rest, data in transit. We take the storage for data at rest, we take the protocols for data in transit, and we encrypt. Well, that also doesn't work in OT. Why? Your devices, which are issuing the communication, which are processing the communication, most of the time, they are devices which have not been built for security, which cannot support encryption, and which cannot talk into an encrypted or into an encrypted language. The devices and the fields, they are not able to discuss in a TLS encrypted way. They are using a large amount of various protocols which are designed for robustness, but which are not designed for security. So the traditional way to protect IT doesn't work in these cases. Therefore, the question is, how do we get machine identity? We need to ensure identity is a of integrity. And that's a fundamental first step. So thinking that way, PKI is the enabler to bring the identity to the device. And how does that work? Let's take the comparison. Real life versus machine identity. Well, in real life, you all have a passport and ID, which is the proof of your own identity. In production line, this is played by a digital certificate. A digital certificate proves that a machine is what it is, saying it is, and is able to prove its identity with its certificate. In real life, we have countries. Countries are accountable for issuing valid passports, are accountable for checking that passports, only valid passports, are currently in use. And that role is played by the entire PKI, the entire public infrastructure, and specifically by the certificate authority. Last, border control. Border control in real life check that only people can go from one place to another if they are allowed to. And in production line, this border control is played by the trust decision between devices and the access control list. These are the technicalities which can be placed to ensure that only allowed communication is in place. What is very funny in that is very often you might have heard about IT-OT convergence problems, meaning IT people don't really, there is a cultural gap between IT and OT. And in this case, PKI is one of the rare situations where everyone agrees. Because PKI brings the reliability that the OT guys love. And for the IT, it brings the trust that is missing for the production, to protect the production devices. So now the question is, which type, how does that help? Which type of communication, which type of use cases can be enabled? There is another question, Manel, that you have.
Just a moment, I'm trying to
Sure.
launch it.
Oh, good. And while the question is coming, let me put the context. Now we understand that how this machine identity can play a role. The goal of the question is to look on what are the options, which are the use cases that can be enabled by the PKI environment.
I'm sorry, I think it's going to take a little bit longer because there is a problem with the poll, I guess. So if you...
Oh, good. I mean, I can skip. I mean, we can continue or we can do it later.
Okay, and
I mean, that doesn't stop the
meanwhile,
flow.
I'll be looking at it.
Of course, no problem.
Thank you.
So, good. we pose about the specific use cases. We're going to mention, I mean, I'm going to talk about some of them as we go, and then we'll look at a little bit of the overview with the poll. So, we want to achieve zero trust. We want to have a trust environment in production line. And for that, we think machine identity is not a bad idea. That's where we stand. But we are in production lines which are existing. So there is no way we can build from scratch a new little country, a new, all the new border controls because the production line is run. So the questions and what I've prepared next is what are the key success factors? How can we start this journey? And after that, we will look at a little example from real life. So, key success factor. How do we try? Well, how do we travel this journey? The first success factor starts with practice of a theory. Let's take a different example. Let's imagine you want to learn piano. Would you start directly with Concerto from Mozart, Vals from Chopin, Sonaten from Beethoven? Probably not, right? You would start learning the scores, playing with one hand, playing with the other hand, playing both hands together, probably with a very simple melody. And then, maybe a few years later, you would go to something more complex. Well, then the question is, why do we do that completely differently in the OT cybersecurity world? I do hear and I do see a lot of companies starting to work on their zero trust architecture from bottom to end, spending months building something extremely complex, which is not proven. So therefore, the first success factor is having a clear use case.
Laetitia, sorry to interrupt you, but
Sure.
it's fixed, so it can go on if you need it. Just let me know.
That's fine. Then I'll go through this one and this first success factor, and then we go to the poll.
Yeah, thank you.
So clear use cases, and that's actually the link, right? What is a clear use case? It doesn't need to be big. It can be small. What can be enabled? Well, it can be secure communication between two production devices, between two robots. It can be firmware distribution in production lines, firmware updates in production lines. It can be connection to Wi-Fi for IIoT device, industrial IoT devices. So all of these small use cases can bring simple but measurable success. So now, I've been already mentioning some use cases. That with these small use cases, that the companies I know which have been successfully going through these steps have made it. So now let's look at what can be enabled through the pool. Let's look at what can be enabled through PKI with the environment. Let's look at what are the possible use cases. So it's a multiple choice question. And the question is, in which practical cases machine identity enabled through PKI could be used? And there are, I don't have it in mind, but it's a few answers.
Take your time to read and then click on all the answers you think are correct. There is more than one answer that is correct.
Looking. Well, I mean, there's some answers in the chat and some answers in the poll. So there are a few. Let's start. Secure communication between two machines is definitively one. I mean, I think that's one of the main or the biggest need in terms of use cases in the production environment. This is to ensure that only trusted devices can talk to each other, therefore that no one can impersonate a device and therefore bring wrong command into a production line, right? I mean, secure communication could have disastrous impact if we think of someone impersonating a device, giving wrong orders. This can lead, of course, to production downtime, which in general is financial impact, but mainly this can lead to jeopardizing people's safety. Some cases of attack, I would take, for example, there was a steam mill quite some years ago now in Germany. And that cybersecurity attack had the consequences that the temperature of the burning metal increased. There was an explosion and there was serious injuries, which could have been lethal, right? So secure communication and this protection, that is really the fundament. That's one. Then, well, secure firmware distribution, that is, for example, something that can be done with machine identity, knowing exactly, based on the certificate, you know exactly which machine require which firmware update, you make sure that they have only valid firmware, etc. The communication, so number 3, connecting IoT devices securely to enterprise Wi-Fi. That is a use case that I implemented that long ago in a pharmaceutical environment, where they were having more and more devices connected to the Wi-Fi, and you needed to make sure that in your production Wi-Fi, separated from the corporate Wi-Fi, you had only production devices and not well, I don't know, the tablet of one of the VPs for the sake of protecting the rest of the measures like segmentation. The rest is less adapted. I mean, of course, encryption is something you can do with certificate, but this is usually not a use case. So encrypted email is not a typical OT use cases because in general, mailing is not what machines do to each other. They have separate communication channels, and therefore this is typically not something which is used in the production environment. Good. So now we have an idea of what we can do. Let's continue with the success factor. So the first one was practice of a theory, clear use cases in small scope. Well, the second one is, for me, know the standards. In the OT world, we are in an environment with a lot of diversity, a lot of different vendors which use very different generation of devices and very different protocol. Comparatively in IT, everyone speak, I mean, machine-wise, everyone speak TCP/IP, everyone has very standard protocols, and therefore you have a way to scale, an interoperability which is missing in OT. In OT, you have, I don't know, more protocols, more proprietary protocols that I can count, and therefore standards are now the way to reduce complexity, to bring a little structure into the diversity and the chaos of OT. And I'm willingly using the word chaos, to be honest. But there are many standards and they are not performing all same. So let's look a little. What are some key ones? Some ones you want to maybe remember the names, maybe some you know the names, which are big players in the production environment and which bring very different results. So let's think about the three little pigs story. In production, building machine identity with no standards is equal to the house of straw. As soon as the big bad wolf comes, well, then the machine identity will not hold the load. You will use your trust, you will use your integrity, well, you will lose your security. So you need some basic standards. The first one that I've mentioned here is a typical protocol which is used in IoT. IoT. It is the so-called MQTT, which stands for, I write it because I never remember, Messaging Queuing Telemetry Transport, MQTT. It's a protocol which I'm rather sure you're using if you are using any type of home automation in your houses. I don't know, anything like heating, automatic heating, which you control with your smart app, a smart washing machine, anything like that. But MQTT is great, but MQTT has been built for IoT devices, for efficiency. It is a fast protocol, but it doesn't have any built-in security. It's not built for that. Therefore, if you want to make MQTT part of your zero trust environment in your production line, you can, but there is no encryption. There is no protection. So this is a standard. You will scale. You will have interoperability into many devices of many brands, whether at home you're using Bosch, any, I mean, you see here, I'm the German base because the first one which comes is Bosch, but any type of home automation, this will work together, but you don't have security measures. So yes, it stands, it scales. That's the house of wood. Well, then what is the house of brick, you're going to tell me? The house of brick needs to be based on different standards which give you different structure, different framework. The first one I'm going to mention here, the second one in this list, in the bracket, I could use my pointer for that, is IEC 62443. It's a standard which provides security requirements. It is in no case a standard for machine identity. It is way bigger than that. It is a reference for industrial automation and control systems. They are, well, it's a big one. There are parts, however, which provide guidance on security requirements that you want to use for secure identity, for certificate handling. It's a frame. Another one, which is worth knowing if you want to have a few keywords and do your reading after this presentation, is OPC-UA. OPC-UA stands for Open Platform Communication and Unified Architecture. What is that? OPC-UA is in production environment very often a backbone of industrial security. It defines the communication. It's a standard which is not a security standard. It is an engineering, it is a standard that is used to architect production line, but it has security profiles and it has enablers for machine identity, specifically something which is called GDS, which is Global Discovery Server, which is an anchor of the identities in the production environment. This is the center which is enabling you to communicate, to talk, to check your certificate, to bring certificates to your production devices. So IEC 62443 for the requirement, OPC-UA for the secure industrial communication, and I think the one which is the most well known, it's the X509. It is a certificate standard. X509 is the DNA of a certificate. It defines how to structure a certificate. It defines what it needs to contain. How does it look like? What does it do? So by building the standards together, by knowing what you want to do and building the right, deciding, it's always a trade-off, right? Of course, it will be much more fast to build a house of straw. You will be way more efficient if you just run your MQTT protocols between devices. However, if there is a cyber attack, then an approach, an environment which has been built, might have been taking longer, will be more robust and will be more secure. It's no surprise, right? This is the same in IT. Of course, if you build something fast together, usually it is a bit more difficult to hold the load. So this wasn't the standards. I happily write a few more if you are interested of what is relevant to read. They are the key. So now, can you guess how the third standard starts? Well, of course, with an E, with a, not E in English, I, iterate fast. Well, in a very old version of the ISO 27001 norm, the plan, try, learn, improve was integrated. Since then, I think we've been a bit forgetting about it. And it's still key. Why? In OT, touching production line is expensive. So having low-cost experiment with clear results, which enable to convince the production engineers, the warehouse engineers, the people who work every day with the devices, that this is worth, is essential. With that, you can find the real wins, which prove to the environment, to the management, to the production stakeholders, that you can have added value, that you can enable them, and that's in that case, security is a true enabler and not a factor of cost and effort like it is very often considered. And there is something I want to add on PKI, and that is, I mean, in this well, very female round, PKI is for me like mental load. When you enable PKI, it keeps running. It enables everyone. Everything for the business is smooth. It's like working without effort, because with certificates, you don't need to discuss passwords. You don't need to discuss all these painful discussions that we are used to have in the IT world. However, you notice that PKI is not working, and it becomes quite a central production line resilience issue if you're having trouble in your PKI. So for me, PKI in production is becoming like mental load. When you implement it, no one remembers it's there because it's such an enabler. Of course, you need to make sure your PKI is running. Otherwise, you have serious resilience problem in your production lines. So now, let's take a real example. We are not in production right now. We are in a laboratory environment, in a chemical product, well, a German chemical producer. A few years ago, in their lab environment, they had no certificate, no PKI, I mean, no zero trust, no buzzwords. But production guys, which were saying to the IT guys, hey, can we connect our lab devices to the Wi-Fi? That would be so much easier. We can be so much more efficient. But then always the answer was coming back, well, that's too risky. Oh, that's too complex. Oh, that's going to be expensive. Oh, you're going to increase, sorry, the attack surface. So no. Well, that was like that for a long time until some lab guys decided to build a team composed of IT, a team composed of OT guys, compliance, and took a very basic use case. They said, this device, if we are able to connect it to the Wi-Fi, we can we can make the business more efficient. Of course, when we say making the business more efficient, in the background, what it means is, well, either reducing costs or increasing productivity. So they took a very simple use cases and they thought, how can we enable that in a secure way? What are the type of standards we know? Of course, certificate-based. Therefore, they went with a simple X509 certificate template. And that company was already working in the big frame of IEC 62443. So they say these two standards enable us interoperability if we are successful and if we want to increase the use case. So simple use case and solid decision on the standard. And then they went on. They connected one devices, worked, everyone was happy, the business was happy, and they went on, connected more and more devices. Well, it was not always working, let's be honest, because they were very old devices in existing laboratory environments. Some devices didn't even accept any certificate. So there was even not a way to share a certificate with them. But anyway, they went on. And if we look now at the results, with one use case, a good awareness of the standard, and going with one system, one certificate, and then going to the next one, well, now, a few years later, the entire lab environment is entirely connected. They have all the required devices able to talk into the Wi-Fi, and they have been extending their use cases. Now, from the laboratory environment, they are going into production. So secure communication between two devices with this OPC-UA standard is something they have already done. They want to build entire production based on a certificate, meaning every device in the production line is receiving a certificate which is following the device all along its life cycle in the production line, therefore knowing exactly at any point in time what is the device, where is the device, what is being the status of the device. There is one more thing which made it work, And that's very often one which is forgotten is one motivated team. The soft aspect was also an essential key on the project. Having motivated guys who understand the environment was an essential success factor. So let's look back. What is the way? What is the way to zero trust? Well, the way to zero trust is knowing the environment, knowing the machine, and remembering the memo technique, the PKI, practice of the theory, know the standard, iterate fast, and of course also PKI as public key infrastructure. That's a bit what I wanted to bring to you today. One goal that I didn't mention at the beginning was simply to democratize, talk a bit more about public key infrastructure. It is still very much a geeky topic in the cyber world. I mean, public key infrastructure is not a well-known part of cybersecurity, even less in OT. And I wanted to, with this session, to give you a few keywords, a few things you want to go and read on what can be done and how PKI can be an essential tool in the production environment. Of course, this is not only, I mean, it is a tool that can be used much broadly. And therefore, if you have questions, I'm happy to open to questions or to a little final poll if there are no specific questions. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Leticia. And we're now taking questions. So if you have a question, please go ahead, raise your hand, and we will give you the floor. Or if you're not comfortable with speaking, you can write it down, and we will try to answer it. Leticia will do. No questions?
Thank you.
So while we're waiting for questions, Leticia prepared for you 2 final quiz. So please have a look.
Yeah. First one was just, well, if you followed the previous one. So what can PKI stand for? That is, so the options are practice of a theory, not a standard, and iterate fast, or plan carefully, keep imagining, ignoring failure, or protect keys immediately, or postpone key implementation.
Okay, so
So yes, so of course PKI is public infrastructure, but also, I mean, the key success factor that I was bringing into this session, which is practice of a theory, know the standard, and iterate fast.
and there is
The last,
one more to go.
yes, no, the last one is, I stopped sharing. It's a bit of a little funny
The
one.
fun
I
one,
mean,
yeah.
exactly. That's a little bit how I picture PKI. If PKI would be a person, and I was thinking, yeah, after this intro session on PKI, public infrastructure, I'm happy to see if you share the view I have on how PKI looks like as a person, or if you have a different perspective. And happy to also write in the chat if you see very different, if you picture PKI as a very different type of person.
So meanwhile, if you have any questions before we end the session, Please go ahead, ask the questions, or you have any comments. You can have a question that is not related to this, but you want to ask Leticia about. Please do. Or else, if we don't have any questions or any interventions, we can close up today's session. But I will give you some time to think of one. If you are not comfortable speaking, just write it down, and then we will try to get to your question. Board with
And yes,
control.
I mean, maybe to debrief the question, I do see typically PKI as a strict but fair security manager, which keeps things running, meaning this is clearly not the micromanager type of boss as PKI. It is typically someone who lets you do your job, who keeps things running in the back and enable you. And you just notice him if he's not there, because then, well, there are a few fundamental tasks which are not being performed. So that's how I picture PKI. I mean, I was happy to share a little bit today with you. And if you have any last question, feel free, or feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or any other ways. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Leticia. Thank you for the support that you have been providing us through all activities, and thank you for today's webinar. I have left an anonymous feedback form for everyone in the chat, so please, if you have 2 minutes to answer it, it will help me prepare better and do better with the webinar organization. I mean, I would love to see you again, Leticia, and I think we will see each other again in one of the upcoming events. I wish you a wonderful weekend. And anyone, if you want to say some words before we go, other than that, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much to both. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Have a great evening too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, Leticia.
Bye.